Hello, welcome back to Single Mom on a Farm. As the last of the leaves fall and the days get colder and shorter, it's time to start thinking about those cozy winter meals. We like a lot of meat and potatoes or soups and stews, or really anything that uses the oven because we don't use the oven much in the summer. So it's fun to start baking bread again or having casseroles. In this video, I share several winter meal ideas. They're all under $30 and they'll feed a large crowd. So if you have a lot of family coming for the holidays or company over, they will feed everybody. All less than $30 for sides and the main dish and the drinks too. If you don't have many people coming, then you can easily cut the recipe in half and you can feed yourself and your family for less than $15. Hope you enjoy the video and enjoy your cozy winter. Tonight we are making lasagna. So Andy is cutting up the basil and oregano and rosemary that I just picked out of our garden because it hasn't quite frozen yet and gotten below 30, so we still have a little bit. You can also add garlic and salt to the ricotta cheese. And I have a jar of store-bought pasta sauce, but homemade is much better. I just don't have any right now. This is kind of a longer meal, but it's still delicious. And sometimes we make homemade French bread with it. Over on the stove, we have 2 pounds of sausage cooking. One's mild and one's medium. These are what we get from our friend who butchers her pigs. And then I've also added some quinoa, about a cup of quinoa in there. Just to let it cook with the sausage. And then we will boil the noodles and layer it all together. Here is what the meat looks like with the quinoa in it. You can use ground beef or sausage or whatever, or just do quinoa. And I am adding some zucchini to it also. And then I'll add the sauce in there. We have the ricotta cheese ready. And the noodles, I didn't cook them all the way because the zucchini makes it pretty wet. So that way it'll finish cooking in the oven. I'll cook the noodles and they won't be too soggy. So let's get it assembled. We've done 2 layers so far. So we did the noodles and then the sauce, then the cheese, and the noodles, sauce, and cheese. So now we'll do 1 more layer of noodles and then the sauce. And we're out of ricotta cheese, but we'll just put a little mozzarella cheese on the top, put foil in it, and stick it in the oven. The lasagna is done. Does it look good? It's a little bit full, huh? Could have used a bigger pan. We have like an 11 by 14, but this one's a 9 by 13 pan. And we have green beans, Andy chose to go with it, and made some homemade French bread also. There you go. After serving everyone, that's how much was left. So this lasagna can definitely serve 14 people. After pricing it out, I realized that my homemade lasagna is probably the most expensive meal that I make. So let's go over the prices really quick. A package of noodles for under $2, and then 2 pounds of organic grass-fed ground beef is $12.64. Quinoa is 75 cents, a zucchini $1, a jar of organic marinara sauce is $2.36, ricotta cheese $5.24, mozzarella cheese about $2, and then spices for 35 cents. And it all comes to $26.03. So quite pricey for lasagna. There on the right, you can see some ingredients to swap out to make it cheaper. For example, use 1 pound of organic ground beef instead of 2 pounds, or even just use regular ground beef for $4.29 a pound. You can replace some of that ground beef with an increased amount of quinoa. You can use a zucchini, squash, or eggplant for free if you have one in your garden. You can use regular sauce, or even if you have homemade sauce, that would be free. You can use cottage cheese instead of ricotta cheese. And if you have some homegrown spices, that would also make it free. So you would have like a total of $17.81 or $15.78 if you're using the regular ground beef. That would make it significantly cheaper. Sometimes I mix and match things, so maybe I will use just 1 pound of organic grass-fed ground beef with extra quinoa, and then the free zucchini from our garden, but maybe the organic sauce. Or maybe sometime I have homemade sauce, so I'll use that, but then I'll use the ricotta cheese and 2 pounds of ground beef. So anyway, I can just kind of mix and match to make it the total that I want. Try to aim for like $15 to $20. Compare this with a Stouffer's lasagna at the store. So I looked it up online and I found that Sam's Club has it on sale right now for $12.48. Normally it's $14.98. Walmart has it for $14.83. Normally it's $16.48. Both of them are on sale right now. Target and Kroger is $16.79, and Lowe's Foods, which I think is just a North Carolina store, it's $18.29. All of these prices are for a 90-ounce, same Stouffer's lasagna that serves 11 people. And my lasagna does serve 14 easily. It is very thick and a big lasagna. Still, I realize it's quite pricey. Having said all this, I will say that I do splurge on frozen lasagna every once in a while, depending on my circumstances. I mean, sometimes I really just feel like making a homemade lasagna and I want it to be healthy, or maybe I have a lot of vegetables from the garden and sauce and maybe some venison or something I can use for free, and I can make a pretty cheap lasagna. And other times, when I don't want to cook at all, I just want to throw in a frozen lasagna. I feel like the Stouffer's lasagna is a good deal to feed my family, and it's also very quick, saves me a lot of energy, and it isn't too terribly bad for you nutritionally wise. Sides are always hard to calculate because I don't know if you have as much homegrown food as we do. So, like asparagus can either be free or $10 if you're buying 3 or 4 bunches, if your family loves asparagus as much as ours does. But I try to just aim for about $1 or $1.25 per person. So there's like asparagus and green beans, French bread, salad. You can do grapes, apples, oranges, anything. So I would just pick 2 or 3 of these, like green beans and French bread and applesauce, or salad and French bread, so that it comes to about $1 a person. So when I do have a crowd of 14 or 15 people at my house and I feel like cooking, it's fun to make them a lasagna. I know I can feed everybody for about $30 to $40, which comes to about $2.85 a person, which is great. I know everybody is full and satisfied because my lasagna is really hearty and thick and filling, and I know that we all had a great time together eating a homemade meal. One of my favorite winter dinners is meatloaf. I used to love to come home from school and smell it cooking in our house. My mom makes really good meatloaf. So we are going to do 3 pounds of ground beef. I like to buy organic grass-fed ground beef. And then I stretch it out a little bit with about a cup of oats and 3/4 of a cup of quinoa. You can go ahead and do the quinoa first, Tilly. And I'll fix this up a sheet, like the price sheet for you. But I do know that like the organic oats that are sprouted were like $1 a cup or something. And then the organic ones are 51 cents a cup, but then the quick oats that are like in bulk from like Quaker or something was 14 cents. And the quinoa is 75 cents for 3/4 of a cup. So if you're interested in that, and then I'm going to add some tomatoes or tomato sauce. Usually I do tomatoes from our garden or from the freezer, but it's so cold. We've been outside and then we didn't defrost the tomatoes, so our hands will be really cold mixing this up. So we'll just do the tomato sauce, garlic, onion, salt, and this is going to be our meatloaf. We're going to make mashed potatoes with it and also carrots. We picked a whole bunch of carrots from our gardens. We're going to have some carrots with it also. And mashed potatoes, what else? Broccoli. This will be a great meal for under $30 for the whole family and lots of leftovers. So you can keep going. Put in the tomato sauce, please. With the leftovers, I always add it to spaghetti. So then your next meal is actually really cheap because I will use the rest of the meatloaf for spaghetti. You're only paying for some spaghetti sauce and the noodles. So it's kind of a 2-for-1. We put our meatloaf in the oven, but you can also cook it in the crock pot. That works great also, just like on high for 3 hours. It's really soft and moist that way. I love it like that. And we're just serving it with our homegrown carrots, broccoli, mashed potatoes. Delicious winter meal. Now for the cost of the meatloaf. This one also looks expensive, but hear me out. It can also serve 14 people if we all just ate the meatloaf in one meal. But this is what I always do. I serve whoever is in my family, like 6 to 8 of us, the first night, meatloaf. Then the next day, people can have as much leftovers as they want. Another 3, 4, or 5 people. And then I use the last of it in spaghetti. Whether there's just a little bit left or a whole bunch left, I use it as a third meal. And that spaghetti will be super cheap because I've already calculated the cost of it as meatloaf. Okay, so let's go over the cost of the meatloaf. 3 pounds of organic grass-fed ground beef is going to be about $19, not on sale. Then some quick oats and quinoa, tomato sauce, 2 eggs, garlic, onion, and salt. It can all come to about $22 or $20 if you use like free tomatoes and free spices and free eggs from your own yard or whatever. We always make mashed potatoes with our meatloaf. So 9 potatoes is $1.41, and then add some butter, milk, and salt, and you come to $2.43. And that serves about 10 people, like whoever's eaten the first night, and then enough for the leftovers, whoever's eating the meatloaf the second day. For other side options, there's asparagus or carrots from your garden, or maybe you had canned some green beans last summer. You can do frozen vegetables like broccoli or mixed veggies. We like to do clementine oranges in the wintertime, just cut them up and put a few on each plate. We also like canned fruit like peaches, either from the store or from your yard. Just choose 2 or 3 sides that come to $1 or 2 per person, and the whole meal will come to less than $30. And the leftover meal of spaghetti will be less than $5. When I make pumpkin chili, I get everything out of the freezer like a day or 2 ahead of time and just stick it in this blue bowl and put it in the fridge to thaw out, and it helps keep the fridge cool also and makes the fridge not work so hard, so that saves money. But I got the tomatoes, zucchini, pumpkin, and 2 things of ground beef. But this one is deer, but I want to use it up. And then we will use our peppers and squash from our garden that we just picked. Otherwise, sometimes they're usually frozen all winter, so that will be for our pumpkin chili soon. I put the frozen pumpkin chili ingredients in the fridge overnight, so now it's the next day and they're kind of thawed out a little bit. And so I'm going to first cook the 2 meats. You can do like ground beef or deer or sausage or any combination. I'm going to just cook that in my Instant Pot on the meat setting. So cook that, brown it, and then I'll just add the rest of the ingredients, including some fresh peppers and fresh squash, and then you just set it at the crock pot setting on low for a few hours and it'll be ready. It's a little bit of an ugly butternut squash. But look how beautiful the inside is. Looks delicious. And we have a whole bunch of peppers from our garden. They're just full of them. So I can put those in too. As soon as I added the tomatoes and the pumpkin and the zucchini, it was just so like, look, red, orange, yellow, green. It's so beautiful. Hope you enjoy the colorfulness of this fantastic chili. And I had cooked the meat on the brown sear setting. I think I forgot to tell you that, but so you know. And now I'll put it on the slow cooker setting. That's actually what I love about this crock pot, is that it has this traditional settings on the side here where you can just brown something, saute, simmer, boil like on the stove, and then you can change it to slow cook for the rest of the hours. It's just fantastic, and that way it saves a pot. You don't have to cook something on the stove and then transfer it to the crock pot. You just do it all in one pot. Just simmer something for like 20 minutes and then change it to slow cook. It's fantastic. I really love this crock pot. This side has the pressure cooker, but I don't actually use it very often. Not as much as like the regular stovetop type of settings and then a crock pot. It's great. Well, I'm going to change it to the crock pot setting now and add the beans and the spices, and we're ready to go. There you go, my most nutritious soup with homegrown vegetables and healthy meats. It's perfect for the winter. I'm going to put it on low for a few hours until we're ready to eat. I concocted this recipe specifically to use vegetables from our garden or as many homegrown items as I could and to keep it under $5. So I've never bought ingredients for this recipe. It's really just a homegrown recipe. But I did look up ingredients on walmart.com to see how much it would cost if you were to buy the ingredients for it. So you've got the ground beef for about $13 and the pinto beans is 20 cents. Then corn, pumpkin, zucchini, squash, and bell pepper are all about $1. And then you got the spices if you're buying those at the store and the chicken broth, and it comes to be about $20. For the homegrown version, I tried to use venison, which is free, or sausage that we've traded with a neighbor. And then there's the pinto beans for 20 cents, a can of corn. We've never grown enough corn to can, we just eat it ourselves. And then the pumpkin, zucchini, squash, bell pepper, garlic, onion, and chili powder are all free. I do not grow cumin or cinnamon or salt, so those cost 34 cents total. And then chicken broth is $1.50 if I'm using a canned variety, or unless I have some from cooking a whole chicken, I would use that. So most of the time with our homegrown ingredients, it only cost me $1.70. And I love it. It's just one of those meals that I take pride in, trying to use every ingredient from our farm and not using anything from the store. It's really fun. Now for toppings, that adds a lot of expense. There's the shredded cheese and the sour cream, and then Fritos or quinoa chips. We ate this the other day with friends and we did go through a whole bag of chips. So I included the whole cost of $4.48 for a bag of chips. And that came to $6.77 for all the toppings. We usually serve this with milk and simple apple slices. So for homegrown, plus the toppings and the chips and the sides, you can feed your family for less than $10. And again, this serves 10 people. But if you were to buy the ingredients from the store, it would probably cost $25 for the entire meal. Still very hearty and very nutritious, and an excellent way to feed your family this winter. Alrighty, here we have 3 more winter meals under $30. First up is the spaghetti. It would cost $3.33 plus the sides and drinks. So I always buy whole wheat noodles, and those would be $1.66. The sauce is $1.67 unless you want organic sauce. And then the meat is $0 because I've already calculated the cost of the meat as meatloaf. That was $20, but remember that it serves 3 meals. The first meal, and the second is leftovers, and then the rest as kind of meat in your spaghetti. And that makes this meal just $3.33. Next up is roast and potatoes. This is another meal that I made for $0 one time. It was so fun. I used a deer roast from hunting, and the potatoes, carrots from our garden, as well as some onions, garlic, and spices. And I didn't have to spend any money on it from the store. It was really fun. But ordinarily, I would buy a chuck roast for about $20, and then potatoes are $1.25 for 8, and carrots are about $1.75, and then add in anything else you want. And it's anywhere, again, like $0 to $25 to make a roast and potatoes. A pretty easy, cheap meal for the wintertime and very filling with lots of leftovers. Next is chicken and dumplings, which I calculated to be about $14. You have the chicken for $8.94, then carrot, celery, peas, onion, garlic for about $2.50, the butter, flour, and milk for the gravy for $1.19, and the dumplings dough is $1.50. This is a delicious winter meal. I love making chicken and dumplings. Something that I didn't put on here, but I was just thinking about when I was mentioning the spaghetti and meat, is what I do with my pumpkin chili is you can put it over baked potatoes. So you just need to spend about $1.25 for 8 potatoes, and you can put your leftover pumpkin chili over them, and then get some broccoli for about $2. And that is another meal that is so cheap because you use leftovers. I never waste any food. Even if there's just crumbs of meatloaf in the meat pan, I use that and put it in my spaghetti. Even if it doesn't have a whole bunch, I just don't waste any food at all. So I encourage you to be creative with your leftovers and put them into another casserole or a stew or a soup or over pasta or anything like that. No food should go to waste, and you can make some really creative meals. And your first meal might be expensive, like $20 to $30, but then the second one might only be $5 to $10. It is so satisfying to cook this way. Well, that is all I have for you for the winter meals. I encourage you to be creative, to think of ways that you can just dump in things that are cheap, like quinoa or wild rice, to stretch your meals or add really cheap vegetables to different dishes. You can grow herbs in your windowsill, which is really fun and helps you save money. Keep your eyes out for good deals on meat this winter because meat is the most expensive thing in each of these meals. But when you find it on sale, then it'll really help keep the cost of your food down. I hope you have a great time cooking this winter for your family. And thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye-bye.